But for me, when I find my crew of music people, it's defined by people who have actually experienced being alone, completely, beautifully, devastatingly been alone. And those people find something in music that makes them reconnect with everything that was beautiful about when they were around other people and places and things that weren't just them. Whether it's in the dead of night, in the middle of winter, in Christmas in Alaska, or on a gravel road in Minnesota, in the summer you get with your grandparents, or when you're absolutely, completely alone with no home, vagabond in the village in New York in 1997, and you realize that some dude with crazy ass, shit ass hair has defined all of rock and roll for all of time in the village, 35 years earlier, and you have some connection with that dude in Dylan. That's music, man. And those people are music people. And they find each other over space and time and tequila and CBGBs and alone and together and all of it. And it really doesn't matter who their favorite band is. It's the fact that they have a favorite fucking band and they found that band when they were alone and it brought them back. So my household was never a play music, it was listen to music. And we would listen to music on a road trip from Biloxi, Mississippi to northern Minnesota every summer on a road trip across that entire expansive highway. And my very first memory is of the two of them singing, I kid you not, to Peter, Paul, and Mary. Stoolball was a racehorse, and the lemon tree, and every other Peter, Paul, and Mary song you could think of. But if you were to think of two songs that you don't hear covered all the time, that are definitive songs that you could 1960s karaoke to on a road trip from Mississippi to Minnesota, Stoolball was the racehorse and Lemon Tree are the two that stick in your mind because nobody else has covered them quite the way the two of them did on a 48-hour road trip from Biloxi, Mississippi to northern Minnesota. And they introduced me to music. And those were the two songs I was introduced to. And over the course of 6 years in Mississippi and another 7 years in Alabama, I was introduced to Willie Nelson and New Orleans and every other song you can think of, from my father's obsession with Elvis, which I hated when I was young and appreciate more now that I'm not young, and my mother's obsession with Dylan, which managed to carry from 8 until 44. But the first two songs were definitively Peter, Paul, and Mary for me. I've moved 14 times in my life of 44 years, but 12 of those times were before I was 21. And in those 21 years, I had one constant, a northern Minnesota lake house with a dirt road, with gravel, and nothing special. And every time I listen to John Prine, I think he understands what your random gravel road in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest, the perfect garden in the perfect summer, the perfect flower in the perfect place in your yard, the perfect sunset, the perfect sunrise, in your average day, in your average place, in your average home when you don't have a home, is John Prine. And if I were to ever carry anything in my backpack for the rest of my life, it would be any average day song in every bar, in every gravel road, in every garden in the Midwest for the rest of my life would be John Prine. And also, I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. We know we know when you're a 44-year-old woman how that goes down. So there's both of those things. And it just accidentally happens to be the same man from the Midwest in a bar with Chris Christopherson and all the rest. And that's why I love him. Pathetic. My favorite holiday song of all time is John Denver and the Muppets singing the 12 Days of Christmas. But not because that's the perfect holiday song. Because that was on a mix that my father made for my mother that introduced me to the Beach Boys, who had a most fabulous holiday album, which introduced me to the most fabulous California culture, which introduced me to the fact that not every hippie lives in the Midwest and thinks of Dylan and the Village, but thinks about surfing and the Beach Boys and joy and craziness and sunshine. And that's my most favorite holiday album, which turns out to be freaking John Denver and Miss Piggy, but really was the way I learned about the Beach Boys in 1985 in Alaska.